So what is routing about? Attached you find another starting project, which when you start the server, gives you this simple application on the screen. This is a View app where we have two main areas, teams and users. We can switch between them, and for every team we can also click View Members, though at the moment nothing happens when we do that. So that's a very simple starting application, and if we have a look at this application, it looks like if we had two pages here, right? Two links here in the navigation, the teams and the users link. But what you will notice is that when I click those links, what we see on the screen changes, but the URL does not change. It's always the same URL. And that's in the end what routing will be about. With Vue, we build JavaScript-driven client-side web applications. So web applications where what the user sees is entirely controlled by JavaScript running in the browser. That is what Vue is all about. And we're also basically building a so-called single-page application, which means we have that one single HTML file which is being fetched, and that file includes imports to the scripts, to all the JavaScript code we're writing here in the end. Not to the code we are writing here, but to a slightly transformed and optimized version of that code. And the CLI is taking care of all of that behind the scenes. But in the end, it's all that JavaScript code which runs in the browser, which is responsible for what we see on the screen here. And that's why we call this kind of app a single-page application. So we want to have just one HTML file and then our JavaScript code controlling what we see on the screen. But with this approach, we have one problem. We have the same URL for all areas of our page. And that means if I would want to share this user's page with another user, well, I could just share this regular URL, which in this case is just our domain name and then nothing. And if you enter this and hit enter, you always end up on the starting page. So I can't share anything else than the starting page of this application, because the change that happens when I click this button is driven by JavaScript and has nothing to do with the URL. It just happens up on the button click here. And whilst this works and this application works, in reality you would want applications powered by Vue and powered by that client-side JavaScript code, which still interact with the URL, so that the URL represents where on the page we are, and so that we got a shareable URL, which we can share with our users, so that I could share a link to this user's page with our users of this web application. And of course, we could try to make this work by having more than one HTML file and then pointing at a different HTML file here, like users HTML, but that is not how this will work. This is not how you build such Vue applications. If you would do that, the script code loaded by that extra HTML file would be totally unrelated to your other script code, which is probably also not what you want. And that's the kind of problem routing will solve for us, because it turns out that there is a tool, an extra package which we can install, which allows us to handle URL changes with JavaScript in the browser and then load something different on the screen in the same single page application when that URL changes or based on that URL. And that same package will also help us change the URL when we navigate somewhere else in this application, so that the URL reflects the place where we are in the app. And that is what routing is all about and why we might want it. So let's now install that extra package to get started with routing.